and today I'm going to share with you something that has been passed down through Jewish families for generations. The clever way smart Jews grow money. Not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through a system of principles that have survived persecution, exile, economic collapse, and every crisis imaginable for over 3,000 years. But before we talk about growing money, let me ask you something. What is money to you? Not what you think it should be. What does it actually mean to you right now? Is it security? Is it freedom? Is it stress? Is it shame? Is it power? Because here's what I've learned after decades of studying wealth, teaching financial literacy, and mentoring hundreds of families. Your relationship with money determines your financial future more than your knowledge of money ever will. You can have a genius IQ and still be broke if you're chasing status, avoiding reality, or living in denial. And you can have a modest education and still build generational wealth if you understand your values and live by them. Morgan Housel, author of The Psychology of Money, said it perfectly. Doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. So before we dive into strategies, tactics, and principles, I want you to pause. Don't take notes yet. Don't open a spreadsheet. Just ask yourself one honest question. What is money for in my life? And what do I want it to be about? If you can answer that honestly, everything else becomes clear. Now let me tell you something that might surprise you. You're probably richer than you think. I know that sounds crazy, especially if you're stressed about bills, tuition, or making ends meet. But hear me out. I've worked with people earning six figures who feel broke. I've counseled business owners with substantial assets who feel like they're failing. And the problem isn't the numbers. It's the noise. We live in a world where the financial bar keeps rising. Weddings cost more. Tuitions increase every year. Real estate prices climb. And if you're not spending or building like the family next door, it's easy to feel like you're falling behind. But behind what? Can appreciate where you are going. So, let me tell you two truths that will ground you. Truth number one. Progress is personal. Your version of enough doesn't have to match anyone else's. Your expenses, your goals, your values, they're yours. And that's not just okay, that's essential. Truth number two. Wealth is what you don't see. There's a brilliant quote from Morgan Housel. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. Just because someone looks rich doesn't mean they are. They might be drowning in debt. They might be one crisis away from bankruptcy. Meanwhile, the guy in the older car down the block might own 5 properties, have no mortgage, and sleep peacefully every night. So stop judging. Stop comparing. Stop trying to win a race with rules that nobody can see. And here's the flip side. You are probably richer than you think, not because you're rolling in cash, but because you're further along than you give yourself credit for. If you're paying your bills, avoiding major debt, and making thoughtful choices, that's real wealth. Now, let me tell you about one of the quietest wealth killers I've ever seen. It's called lifestyle creep, and it's destroying more families than any economic recession ever could. Here's what happens. Someone gets a raise. Maybe they go from $80,000 a year to $100,000. They think, finally, now we can breathe, now we can save, now we can invest. But within 6 months, something strange happens. Their expenses have quietly risen to match their new income. They upgrade their apartment. They lease a nicer car. They start eating out more. They book a more expensive vacation. And suddenly, they're still living paycheck to paycheck. just at a higher income level. I had a client, a successful businessman, who doubled his income over 5 years, and he came to me more stressed than ever. I looked at his finances and realized his expenses had doubled too. He didn't have a money problem, he had a discipline problem. This is what I call the treadmill effect. You're running faster, but still going to inflate our spending. And when they do splurge, it's intentional. It's on things that bring true joy, not things they buy on autopilot because everyone else is buying them. In the Torah, there's a principle called Dayenu. It would have been enough. It's a song we sing at Passover, listing all the miracles God performed for the Israelites. After each one, we say, it would have been enough. This isn't about settling for less. It's about recognizing abundance before demanding more. Your biggest wealth builder isn't income. It's the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Grow that gap, and you grow freedom. Shrink that gap, and you're one emergency away from panic. Now let me talk about something most people misunderstand completely: budgets. Most people think a budget is a cage, a punishment, a restriction for people who can't control themselves. That's completely backwards. A budget isn't a cage, it's a pair of glasses. It helps you see clearly. It shows you where your money is actually going, not where you think it's going. I've had people tell me, "Rabbi, I don't need a budget. I know where my money goes." Then I ask them to track their spending for 1 month, and they're shocked. I had no idea we were spending that much on takeout. I didn't realize how much those subscriptions add up. A budget doesn't tell you what you can't do. It tells you what you're actually doing. And once you see it clearly, you can make better choices. In the Jewish tradition, we have a concept called Cheshbon HaNefesh, an accounting of the soul. It's a practice of self-examination. You look honestly at your actions, your choices, your patterns, not to shame yourself, to improve. A budget is Cheshbon HaNefesh for your finances. It's not about judgment. It's about awareness. Here's how smart Jews approach budgeting. They don't track every penny obsessively. They focus on the big categories: housing, food, transportation, savings, giving. They set targets for each category. You can survive the bad years. This isn't just ancient wisdom. This is the foundation of wealth building. The ability to delay gratification, to say no to pleasure today for security tomorrow, is the difference between wealth and poverty. I had a student, a young man in his 20s, who came to me frustrated. He said, "Rabbi, I'm making good money, but I have nothing saved. Where is it all going?" We looked at his spending. Coffee every morning, lunch out every day, new clothes every month, the latest phone, streaming services, subscriptions he forgot he had. None of these things were expensive individually, but together they were consuming 40% of his income. He was trading his future for tiny pleasures he didn't even remember a week later. I gave him a challenge. For 90 days, cut all discretionary spending. No coffee shops, no restaurants, no new clothes, no impulse purchases, just necessities. He thought I was crazy, but he did it. And at the end of 90 days, he had saved $4,500, money he didn't even know he had. More importantly, he learned something. Most of what we think we need, we don't. Most of what we think will make us happy doesn't. The Talmud teaches, who is wealthy? He who is happy with what he has. Happiness isn't about having more. It's about wanting less. Now, let me share with you one of the most misunderstood concepts in Jewish finance, the principle of ma'aser, or tithing. In the Torah, we're commanded to give 10% of our income. Not suggested, commanded. And here's what's fascinating. This isn't just about charity. It's about psychology. When you give 10% of your income away, you're making a powerful statement to your subconscious mind. I have more than enough. I am abundant. I am a source of blessing. That belief changes everything. I started giving 10% when I was making else. Now let me talk about something that separates smart Jewish families from everyone else. Multi-generational thinking. In the Jewish tradition, we don't just think about our own lives, we think about our children's lives and our grandchildren's lives. We plant trees under whose shade we'll never sit. This is why Jewish families have survived and thrived through every crisis in history, because they're not optimizing for today, they're optimizing for generations. When you buy a house, you're not just buying shelter, you're building equity for your children. When you invest, you're not just securing your retirement, you're creating inheritance for your grandchildren. When you educate yourself, you're not just increasing your income, you're modeling values for your family. I had a conversation with a 70-year-old man who had built substantial wealth. I asked him, "What's your secret?" He said, "I never made a financial decision without asking, how will this affect my grandchildren?" That's multi-generational thinking. That's how you build lasting wealth. In the Torah, God makes a covenant not just with Abraham, but with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. 3 generations. Because true blessing isn't about one lifetime, it's about continuity. Now, let me share with you the most important principle of all. Education is the ultimate investment. In Jewish culture, education isn't optional, it's sacred. We call it Torah, not just religious study, but all knowledge, all wisdom, all learning. There's a famous story in the Talmud. A man asks a rabbi, "Should I invest in land or in my son's education?" The rabbi answers, "Invest in your son's education. Land can be taken from you. Knowledge cannot." This is why Jews have historically dominated fields like medicine, law, finance, and science, not because of genetics, because of culture, because education is the one asset that can never be confiscated, taxed, or destroyed. I tell every young person I mentor, the best investment you can make is in yourself. Learn a high-income skill. Master a craft. Become excellent at something richer than you think. Gratitude is the foundation of abundance. Principle 3. Lock in your lifestyle. Don't let expenses rise with income. Principle 4. Budget with awareness, not restriction. See clearly so you can choose wisely. Principle 5. Master delayed gratification. Trade tiny pleasures today for massive security tomorrow. Principle 6. Give first, not last. Train your mind to operate from abundance. Principle 7. Think multi-generationally. Build for your children's children. Principle 8. Invest in education relentlessly. Knowledge is the only asset that compounds without limit. These aren't get-rich-quick schemes. These are get-rich-certain principles. They work slowly. They work quietly. But they work inevitably. Let me tell you one final story. When I was 30 years old, I was broke. I had debt. I had no savings. I had no plan. I felt like a failure. Then I met an older man at synagogue. He was in his 70s, wealthy, respected, generous. I asked him, "How did you do it? How did you build wealth?" He said, "I followed the principles my grandfather taught me. Save first, spend last, give always, learn constantly, think long term, and never, ever compare myself to others." I asked, "That's it? That's the secret?" He smiled and said, "There is no secret. There's only discipline. Most people know what to do. They just don't do it long enough." That conversation changed my life. Because I realized I didn't need a secret. I needed consistency. So I started applying these principles, not perfectly, but consistently. And over the next 20 years, everything changed. My income multiplied. My investments grew. My stress decreased. My options increased. People never learn. The real secret isn't just saving. It's making your money work for you while you sleep. There's a concept in Jewish thought called Piria the Rivia, growth and multiplication. It doesn't just apply to having children. It applies to everything that should grow and multiply, including wealth. When you put money in a savings account earning 0.5% interest, it's not growing, it's dying. Inflation is eating it alive. But when you invest that money wisely, it multiplies, it compounds. It works for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether you're awake or asleep. I had a conversation with a rabbi who started investing $250 a month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund when he was 35 years old. Nothing fancy, no stock picking, no crypto gambling, just consistent, boring investing. 15 years later, he had over $110,000. Not because he was brilliant, because he was consistent. Because he understood that time in the market beats timing the market every single time. Morgan Housel said, "The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up and say, I can do whatever I want today." That kind of freedom doesn't come from chasing hot stocks. It comes from planting seeds and letting them grow. Now, let me address something that holds many people back from investing. Fear. Fear of losing money. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear of the stock market crashing. Here's what I tell people. The biggest risk isn't investing and losing money. The biggest risk is not investing and guaranteeing you'll never build wealth. In the Talmud, there's a teaching about a man who buried his money in the ground to keep it safe. When he dug it up, years later, it was still there. But it hadn't grown, it hadn't multiplied, and because of inflation and the passage of time, it was worth less than when he buried it. The rabbis teach, he who doesn't take calculated risks will never build anything of value. Notice the word calculated. This isn't about gambling. This isn't about putting everything on red. You wait until age 35 to start. You'll only have about $750,000. That 10-year delay cost you $1 million. Time is your greatest asset when you're young, and it's your greatest enemy when you're old. So if you're young and you think, I'll start investing later when I have more money, you're making the most expensive mistake of your life. Start now. Even if it's just $50 a month, even if it's just $20, start. Now let me talk about something that separates truly wealthy people from everyone else. They understand the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. It's that simple. Your house? If you're living in it and paying a mortgage, it's a liability. If you're renting it out and it generates income, it's an asset. Your car? Liability. It depreciates, requires maintenance, and costs money every month. Your education? If it increases your earning potential, it's an asset. If you went into debt for a degree you're not using, it's a liability. The wealthy focus on acquiring assets. The poor and middle class focus on acquiring liabilities that they think are assets. I had a client who made $150,000 a year. He drove a $70,000 car, lived in a house with a massive mortgage, and had almost no savings. He thought he was wealthy because he looked wealthy. Then he lost his job. Within 6 months, he was in crisis. The car payment, the mortgage, the lifestyle, it all collapsed. He had income, but he had no wealth. He had liabilities disguised as assets. Compare that to another client who made $80,000 a year. He drove a 10-year-old car, lived in a modest apartment, and invested 30% of his income. He didn't look wealthy, but he was building real wealth, assets that generated income, investments that compounded, security that couldn't be taken away. Which one would you rather be? In the Torah, properties, their side business, their consulting, their online course. Why? Because if one stream dries up, they still have others. They're not dependent on any single source. I started my wealth-building journey with just my salary. Then I added a side hustle doing bookkeeping on weekends. That brought in an extra $1,000 a month. I invested that money. Those investments started generating dividends. I bought a rental property. That generated rental income. I created an online course. That generated passive income. Today, I have 7 different income streams. If I lost my main job tomorrow, I'd be fine. Not because I'm special, because I diversified. Here's what I tell young people. Your job is your foundation, but it shouldn't be your only source of income. Find something you're good at, something people need, something you can do in your spare time, and build a second income stream. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to replace your job. It just has to exist. Because once you have 2 income streams, you have options, you have security, you have leverage. And here's the beautiful part. That second income stream doesn't have to fund your lifestyle. It can fund your investments. It can fund your future. It can be the difference between retiring at 65 and retiring at 55. The Talmud teaches, he who has 100 wants 200. This is usually taught as a warning against greed, but I see it differently. It's human nature to want more. So instead of fighting that nature, channel it productively. You have one income stream? Build a second. You have two? Build a third. Not to feed your ego, to feed your freedom. Now let me talk about something that's deeply embedded in Jewish culture, but often misunderstood: the relationship between money and meaning. In Judaism, we don't see money as evil. We see it as a tool that can be used for good or for evil, depending on the person wielding it. There's a teaching in the Talmud: Torah without work. The difference isn't the money, it's the relationship with the money. Money should serve your values, not replace them. Money should enable your purpose, not become your purpose. Money should give you options, not own you. In the Torah, Abraham is described as both wealthy and righteous, not wealthy or righteous, both. Because true success isn't choosing between money and meaning, it's integrating them. Let me close with this. The clever way smart Jews grow money isn't a secret formula. It's not a hack. It's not a shortcut. It's a system of timeless principles applied consistently over time. Know your why. Understand what money means to you and what you want it to do. Practice gratitude. Recognize you're richer than you think. Control lifestyle creep. Don't let expenses rise with income. Budget with awareness. See clearly so you can choose wisely. Delay gratification. Trade small pleasures today for massive security tomorrow. Give first. Train your mind to operate from abundance. Invest consistently. Let time and compound interest do the heavy lifting. Acquire assets, not liabilities. Focus on what puts money in your pocket. Build multiple income streams. Don't depend on any single source. Balance money and meaning. Let wealth serve your values, not replace them. These principles have survived 3,000 years of history. They've survived persecution, exile, economic collapse, and every crisis imaginable. They work in every economy, every country, every generation. They worked for my grandparents. They worked for me. And they'll work for you. But only if you apply them. Only if you're consistent. Only if you're patient. Wealth isn't built in a day. It's built in decades, one decision at a time, one investment at a time, one act of discipline at a time. The question isn't whether these principles work. The question is, will you work them? In the comments below, tell me, which principle are you going to implement first? What's your biggest challenge with money right now? Let's talk about it. And if this video gave you a new perspective, makes it possible. So use the tool wisely. Build your wealth strategically. And never forget why you're building it in the first place. Shalom. And until next time.
Subscribe my YouTube channel, Blessed Billionaire.